Bless you, and please, may the Lord be with you in your work.
Thank you, Father Kalish. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
It's wonderful to be back here again. It's a little more snowy than it was the last time I was here, and I told Father Kalish in the sacristy, I said, I wonder how many people were going to come today. And I said, I was counting on 3. You know, Father Kalish, Shirley, and myself. But by God's gracious mercy, I welcome all of you here and thank you again for coming. Today's conferences are going to be, as they were last time, very interactive. So if I say something or I use a term or a word that you do not understand, feel free to raise your hand, or like some people just yell out, what does that mean? And I'll be happy to stop and to answer whatever your questions are. But the last part of our meeting, right after lunch, they'll be handed out little cards and pencils or pens that you can write any question you don't want to ask during the lectures. So that any little questions you might have, disguise your handwriting. The only one I really know is Father Kalish's, so if he starts writing more than one, I'll just keep going over it until I find another one. But that's what we'll do at the very end. That'll be what we call a potpourri, that you can always just ask whatever you'd like to ask. So when I came last year, about a year ago, it was all for the Altar Society about what we do upon the altar. And they asked me to give a little bit of that talk again at this time, and to shore up some of the things that we were discussing last year, and some of the issues you might have been having this coming year. So we were talking about care of altar linens. Now, who takes care of the altar linens? Nobody takes care of the altar linens?
Shirley?
Shirley, oh, there you are, Shirley, okay.
Also,
The purificators, the corporals, the all of the linens for the altar, and how we clean them. And I think, how are they cleaned in this parish? How do we do
We have
it?
an assortment, I think an assortment of ways.
Okay, what are the assortments of ways?
I can't speak for anybody else, but when I do it, I use baking soda and hydrogen peroxide.
Mm-hmm. And so how do we cleanse them first, though, right after they're used at the service?
Oh, I don't know, that I don't have that.
the purification.
Purificators, things like that, yeah. One of the best ways to do it that I found out, now we have what's called OxyClean, right? So what I do in my own parish is that I have a plastic bucket that you can get from almost any place during the summer, right, that you put drinks in, but I don't use it for drinks. I use it only to clean the linen.
I do.
That's it. See, I knew she did the same thing. And so in order to clean them well, because most of all they're usually stained with the communion wine, correct? And so out of respect for all the sacred linens, we place them all within one container, put a little bit of OxyClean at the bottom, and let them soak for at least overnight. And then after you do that, if you have them at home, what you do is you go to the garden or something and pour out the first washing into the garden. Now the reason why you do this is because all the consecrated elements and everything that was used on the altar deserve respect. So you can rinse it out that first way, pour it into the side of the garden somewhere, and then you can rinse them out, and then you can launder them normally. Now, how many of you who irons, anyone here iron the linens?
I do.
You do? Okay, do you use starch?
No.
Good. Never use starch. Linens do not need to be starched. If you iron them while they're still damp, they will have a crisp look and appearance on them, because what starch does is starch actually starts breaking down the linen itself, because if you use too much starch and it's a hot iron, they won't last as long, and also they turn yellow. So that's some of the things that we do at All Saints. Is very simple how to clean them, very simple how to iron them, and I think I gave you an instruction manual how to fold them, right? Because all the linens are in, we celebrated the Eucharist today, the linens that were folded on the altar are all folded perfectly. So that when you open them up, the reason the corporal is folded the way it is because if there are any particles of the Holy Eucharist that have fallen onto the corporal itself, you fold it in and over so they don't ever spill. When you clean a corporal, you go to the garden, you shake it out first to get all the particles off, and then you can launder it. And again, that is because that the Holy Eucharist itself, we want to be respectful. Yes?
Corporal.
The corporal, it is,
Martha Stewart would say to you shouldn't soak it.
if they're stained heavily, we do. This is the corporal. And it's the large cloth that's placed on the altar at the time of the offertory. And the reason it's called a corporal is because it comes from the Latin corpus, meaning body. Because this is where the body of Christ actually rests upon after it is consecrated. So, like I said, it's folded perfectly so that it forms a little napkin so that any of the particles that are inside, the altar side, it goes out into the garden, shakes it, into the garden so that it won't be stepped upon. Yes, so it can decompose naturally. Yes.
And nourish it.
Yes, it nourishes the garden too. That's exactly right. Yes.
What's the purificator?
The purificator. Perfect. See, I knew there was a reason they left all the vessels on the altar. This is the purificator. And it does exactly what the name says. It purifies the chalice. So after everyone has received Holy Communion and he wipes the rim of the priest or the deacon wipes the rim of the chalice, it purifies it. And then when the chalice has been cleansed, it dries up everything inside the chalice, so it purifies it. Yes?
What is your response to all of the upset within the church concerning communion and infection?
And infection, especially at this time of the flu season,
Yeah.
there isn't.
And I think some of the Catholic Church are forbidding.
Yeah, some churches are, but scientists have shown that the alcohol that is in the communion wine itself is antiseptic. So there is no real, the only real way you would catch it if someone sneezed into the chalice or something, and then the minister of Holy Communion would take it out anyway, and properly dispose of it. So I really see no problem.
But it's also sanctified
Yes.
in the service.
Yes, and so, it's the blood of Christ, so you're not gonna catch any, at least in my opinion, you're not gonna catch any disease from Holy Communion, yes.
If they could catch it, if you could catch a disease from the chalice, why do we have so many priests?
That's right. Why haven't all the priests died, right?
Because they drink from the chalice after the whole
Congregation has finished it, yes, we finished the whole of the chalice.
Another thing, I don't have myself a copy of the Anglican Missal, complete Missal,
Mm-hmm,
that has all the rubrics.
yes.
I do the American Missal.
Mm-hmm,
The American Missal says that the wine has to be at least 18%
Mhm.
alcohol,
okay,
which would even make it more
yeah,
hand-sucking.
yes.
Then again, communion wine would not stain the linens
Mm-hmm,
because it's the less expensive wines that have a very low alcohol content that are very stained.
oh, yeah, yes, yes.
So if we would get back to going to and I believe the liquor stores call it fortified wine,
Mm-hmm,
we wouldn't have that problem of stained linens.
or you have enough property around here, you could probably start growing your own vineyards and
We
marketing.
have some up there
We have some
we have some.
June grapes up there.
Do you really? Are
Oh,
they
we
good?
don't make our own wine.
You should try it though and see how well that actually turns out. Okay, so to reiterate, the care of the altar, the care of the linens is very, very important because, like I said in our last sessions, lex orandi, lex credendi, how we worship expresses what we believe. Lex orandi, lex credendi. How we worship expresses our belief. So how we treat everything that's on the altar is how we want people to know exactly what we believe about Christ, who is present within our community, who is present upon our altar, and who is the most important person within our lives. So that's why everything is treated with the utmost of respect of all people in the altar society, how we treat the vessels of the altar, how we treat the linens of the altar. Everything shows to the world around us exactly what we believe about Christ. Okay, so the cleansing of the altar vessels themselves, after the priest or deacon have cleansed the altar vessels, how do we clean them here at St. Thomas's?
We clean them in the sink, empty them outside,
Mm-hmm.
and then we just use soap and water.
Okay, every time?
Yeah.
Okay. And do you have, do you clean them once a month, like with a silver, or are your vessels are gilded, correct? So
Yes.
they're not silvered on the inside, so, usually you can use a little bit of silver polish, to clean the vessels once a month, to keep them whatever things you can get out by cleansing them by water and soap. Use dishwashing soap, right?
Yes.
Good. It's a very simple dishwashing soap. Keep all of those clean. Okay. What else? Anything else about the altar that anyone had questions about from either the last time or for now?
There is a list of things that we wrote about the altar.
Mhm.
It's posted in different places in the wall.
Uh-huh.
Maybe you should check it and see that it's correct.
Okay. I will do that during one of our breaks. I will go out and do that.
I would
Now-
say a major problem with the candles,
Okay.
cleaning them.
Okay. So what do they leak or?
We have one for some reason. We always seem to have one that leaks worse than any of the others.
Okay. So they are real candles, correct? Not.
51%.
51%. Okay, good. So they should burn. They should burn pretty well. Maybe the followers on the top are not tight enough. These little gilded things right here, maybe they're just a little bit too wide. Whoops, something just fell off. There we go. Okay. Either that, or a lot of the times it's the air circulation that's within the sanctuary. We have a heating system that blows, so we have the same problem on one of our candles on the epistle side. Is that there's a heating system that's kind of above, and then it blows down the air, so it starts gutting when that happens. So make sure that before each and every service you check the candles, make sure that the wick is cut to an appropriate length, that it's not long and turned over. Because that will just create a larger flame, which will start, if you have a wind problem or some kind of other ventilation problem, what it will do, it will cause it then to start consuming the wax faster, and that's why you have the dripping problem. So just make sure when you look at the candles that you snip off the top of the wick if it has turned, or make sure that it's not very large, so that both it's economical for your candles, and also it prevents them from doing what some of the candles up there would do, and that's gutting and consuming the wax. So sometimes you have one candle that's lower than the other. Right. And so as long as you make sure that you do that, it should be okay. It should be okay. All right. Any other questions about the altar? Oh, thank you. You may have that. She'll keep it for later. All right. I think I'm trying to remember what questions were asked me last time, and if they have been remedied about linens. Now, we talked about the last time about making linens or cloths for the altar. If you know anyone within the parish who does any sewing, anyone in the parish do any sewing?
Yeah.
Have you thought about making your own extra altar cloths for the altar?
I made the ones that's on there right now.
Cloth, the one that's here?
Yes.
Very, very nice. Very, very nice. How many of these do you have?
Two.
You have 2. Okay. In looking at some of the rubrics for the church for altars, sometimes we have ones that are that are longer, that add to the dignity of the altar. So usually most cloths, if you have an altar like this, the cloths usually come down for at least about 2 inches above the ground. And when you have penitential seasons, you have antipendia that are colored, the coverings for the front of the altar. Do you have purple and green and the rest of that? Okay. Which adds more of a dignity to it, as if you would have a longer cloth on each side, a longer fair linen on the top. So very easily, if you're good at sewing, it's wonderfully done right now. You can see it. It's lovely. The hemming's very nice. If you can do that, then you could have longer ones on either side of the altar than it goes all the way down. So it gives it more of a finished look, and so that when the whole altar is covered on all sides, then you will have it. You'll have it covered. Okay, that looks perfect. Yes.
This was some time back.
Mm-hmm.
Mary Ann Pike, some of you may remember her. She was going to do some linens.
Mm-hmm.
She had a heck of a time trying to find linen.
Mm-hmm.
Where?
You know, one of the interesting places you can actually find linen is if you go to, I don't know if you have them up here, you have like Marshalls and TJ Maxx,
Yeah, this teaching.
or even Home Goods. They sell linen tablecloths, in their, hem-stitched linen and the rest of that. You can look and find them, and you can actually buy them for cheap, and then transform them into whatever you want to do. That's what we do. I don't, trying to find real, lengths of linen, it's very difficult to find. So I usually go there.
You can get it at the internet.
Well, if you want to go on the internet and pay,
Yeah.
somewhat
It's
of
okay.
exorbitant amount of money on it, that's fine.
No.
But if you can go to one of these local places and find it too, they have napkins and all the rest of that, you can actually transform them into what you need.
Are they linen?
Yes,
Yes.
you can look on them and
Yes.
see that they tell you that they are linen. A lot of them are, so that you can actually, cut them down to what you need. Or even if you go to estate sales or the rest of that, you find tablecloths or other, or the napkins that, large, damask linen napkins, you can cut them down into purificators and also into corporals. And you can save yourself a lot of time and energy by doing that. See, don't go to the church goods stores. Your little catalogs, they just cheat you anyway. All right? Usually you can find what you need outside of a church goods store, especially if you have someone who can sew. And you raise your hand too. So you might be able to help with sewing part of these things too. But the whole thing is to keep everything dignified, to keep everything looking beautiful on your altar, because like I said, how we worship expresses what we believe. Now I just saw Shirley come back. Did she get everything printed up?
She has them here.
Perfect. I knew she'd get it done, just